Hello everyone, welcome to Media Communications Portfolio Project 3. I just wanted to give a quick introduction to the course and go over some of the projects you'll be working on so you have an idea of what to expect in the month ahead. Just like the previous Portfolio Project courses, this is a continuation of the efforts you started in Portfolio Project 1. You'll be continuing to work with your chosen portfolio subject and developing the media strategy for that subject's media needs. This month we are going to be doing two projects. One is a logo design, and that will be a direct continuation of your style guide that you started in Media Communications Portfolio Project 2. So hopefully you've saved a copy of that document. You will need that this month, and unfortunately I'm not able to recover that if for any reason you have lost the document. Hopefully you have saved copies of your work, since these are portfolio pieces. They're work that you want to hang on to throughout your program. The other project, which is actually the major project for the month, is a video asset. So this is going to be a digital video project of some sort, and I'll get into the specifics of that in just a moment. So the logo design we're going to initiate this week, but it's really not due until the end of week 3. So you have time to think about this and time to work on it, but I just wanted to give a little bit of a kickoff in week 1 so you do start thinking about it, because it is going to sneak up on you since we'll be focusing on the video project a lot. I don't want it to fall to the wayside. This is going to call upon your graphic design skills, so directly leveraging the skills you've gained in the graphic design course, and you will create a logo for your chosen portfolio subject. So think about the factors that you've decided upon in your style guide from Portfolio Project 2, things like the brand's personality, the colors, the typography you selected, and so on, and think of how you can incorporate that into a relatively simple, small scale representation of that brand, because that's what a logo ultimately is a visual embodiment of that particular subject's identity. You don't want this to be really large. It's not a banner. It's not a full-sized poster or anything like that. Think about logos that you see out in products that you use, or different businesses that you frequent. You know, the Coca-Cola logo, the McDonald's logo, even the Nike swoosh with the Nike sign, Nike name. These are all relatively minimalist designs, so you don't want to go too overboard. And for the most part, it's good to avoid photorealistic imagery. Graphics, icons, and so forth are best because they can be easily reproduced. And think about how you can generalize this logo in terms of the media usage, whether it's going to be printed on flyers or print ads, or if it's going to be on product labels, or if it's going to be on a website or whatever, or digital video. So make something that can be used really across the board and easily reproduced. Just a few of the criteria that it must attend to. It must be your own original design. So you don't want to borrow too heavily from any existing design or creative work. That is ultimately plagiarism as well as copyright infringement. There's a good chance that your subject may already have a logo existing if they are a real-world business or other entity, and that's okay. You can draw from the creative direction of that existing logo, but I really want this to be your own original work. This is an academic exercise, so you're not really intending to replace their logo in a real-world sense, but just exercise your own knowledge as a media professional and as a designer in your own right. So no copyrighted materials. This can be tricky, but just really pay attention to the source that you're using to get the different components. There's a lot of websites out there that have icons and graphics that are completely free, royalty free. In some cases, really pay attention to the copyright indicated. If it's Creative Commons, note what level of Creative Commons it is. If it's completely free to use, that's fine, but sometimes it's attribution, which means give credit to the provider or the creator, and sometimes it's more restricted use, like non-commercial only, which this is educational purpose, so that's not really a concern, but also if it says all rights reserved, then that is off limits. And again, try to incorporate the style that you established in your style guide, from the overall personality down to the colors and even typefaces that you chose. This is going to go into your style guide, so you're actually going to add this to that logo section of the style guide that we left blank in Portfolio Project 2. And you're also going to include any variations on the logo, so if there's alternate versions that are different colors, different arrangements of some sort, some different versions that are used for different purposes, include that there. Also, logo usage. This is a written set of instructions on how the logo should and should not be used. So if you do have alternate versions, indicate when and where those are intended to be used. If there's other differences as far as color or what have you, talk about how those are used. And if there's ways that it should never be used. And sometimes, probably the most often seen restriction on a logo use is simply that it cannot be altered in any way. This was something that I encountered in my own work when I worked for the Lockheed Martin Corporation. I was supporting a corporate training website, and I created a little graphic that was the Lockheed Martin star symbol zooming around a globe like a satellite, and I got called out on that because it is against the policy to alter the logo in any way, and that went against that rule. So that's often the case. Other indications are simply guidelines on the size it should be reproduced at, restricted colors, indication of backgrounds that it should be applied on, and so forth. So put some thought into that. Make sure that the rules or logo usage rules that you apply have a reason. Don't just make them up for the sake of making up rules, but have a viable and logical reason for doing what you're doing. So that's the logo design project, and that's going to be relatively small scale in comparison to the video concept, or the video project. The video is going to be created in installments, so in stages, much like the other portfolio projects you've done. So we're going to start off by just doing some brainstorming, because I want you to come up with an idea for a digital video that makes sense in relation to your subject, that fulfills their needs, that fulfills their goals, and makes effective use of the digital video format as it would apply to that specific subject and their specific needs. So put some thought into that, and you're going to post this to the discussion board. This is mainly for me to get a sense that you have a good direction with the project before you start recording any video or putting anything together, because I don't want you to be spinning your wheels and end up wasting time, because we all know how valuable time is with the accelerated courses. And then usually I'll give the thumbs up. Sometimes I'll give some suggestions on how to go about a particular project, tips on shooting a particular subject matter, and so forth. Very rarely do I give the thumbs down to a video idea, but sometimes I might. It could happen, so pay close attention to the feedback given and take your video in different directions depending on what is indicated. Some potential formats include promotional videos like commercials. This is what I see most often. PSAs are kind of a subset of commercials. These are videos that bring awareness to a particular subject or a particular cause. So not really a product or a service, but simply an awareness piece. Viral marketing and transmedia, these are really creative, really good use of, can involve good use of humor and artistry. So if you're feeling very creative, you could take on one of those two types. If you are interested in journalism, or if your subject lends itself towards journalism, then news reports or journalistic pieces, investigative type pieces could work, as well as short documentaries, which are in some ways a form of journalism in themselves. Music videos I've seen attempted on a few occasions. They are really tough, so be mindful of that. And also, if you're doing a music video, say if your subject is a musician, copyright applies there as well to the music, so be very careful about that. Short films, if you are an aspiring filmmaker, you can make say a short comedy or drama or what have you. Also a movie trailer would work in that case, or anything else that I haven't thought of. There's many other possibilities. We might do a training video on a particular subject, an interview, I don't know. So sky's the limit as long as it makes sense to your subject. The content of the video is less important than your ability to successfully edit a video and present a coherent message, whatever the subject might be. When you write up your description of your idea, you'll talk about the nature of video. So what is it? What is it going to include as far as content? How long do you see it running for? And I don't indicate a specific requirement for runtime because each video will have a different set of needs. If you're doing a commercial, a typical commercial is around half a minute at most, sometimes longer if it's a special case, but usually they're pretty brief. But if you are doing a PSA, it might be a little longer. If you're doing a documentary, then it's going to be significantly longer, most likely. So it could go up to 5-10 minutes. I wouldn't go over the 10-minute mark for the purpose of this course. Time is a commodity, so be mindful of what you're capable of taking on, and don't bite off more than you can chew. Talk a little bit about the content you foresee for the video. So I don't expect you to have a script or a storyboard made at this point, but just what are you foreseeing this involving, and what will you need? What will you need in terms of equipment? What will you need in terms of personnel, or in terms of simply the content? Are you going to use still imagery? Are you going to use full motion video? Is it going to be stock footage, or is it going to be original footage? And if it's stock footage, where are you going to get that from? And so forth. So think about the resources you are going to need. And so that's what I'll be looking for this week. And then once that's approved, you'll move into actually shooting your video and putting it together. And the actual production will take stages as well. First, you'll start off with a rough cut, or an assembly cut, it's referred to as. This is just to show me that you're making progress. So I'm not expecting you to have a fully shot and edited video at that point, but just I want to see that you are working on this. Then in week 3, you'll have the fine cut, which is the working version of your video. And that'll give me a chance to give you one last round of feedback, and then you'll turn in the final refined cut. And that will be your portfolio piece that you take away from this course. Even though you are leaving the course, doesn't mean that that portfolio project is simply forgotten. You're always allowed to go back and refine it further as time permits, because sometimes the 4-week format is not enough time to get it really to where you want it to be. So you don't have to stop working after the 4 weeks. but I know you'll be busy with other courses, so kind of plan your time wisely. And the last thing I wanted to cover, and since this is our only go-to session for the month, I want to make sure I touch on this now, and that is some tips for recording videos. Because odds are you're going to be recording video with your smartphone, whether it's Android or iPhone. And when you do, there's just some basic considerations. If you have better equipment than an iPhone, if you have a professional camera, that's fantastic. And some of this might not be completely relevant, but since for most of us, our phone is our production equipment, this is going to be some tips for making a better overall product. First and foremost, no vertical video. And I really don't want to see any vertical video. If I do, it will likely be rejected. Vertical video is when you hold your phone vertically instead of horizontally, sideways. Sideways video gives you the right dimensions, the right aspect ratio, and looks more professional. Vertical video is a phenomenon that's come with the advent of phone cameras and YouTube, and it looks like very amateurish home video. So I cannot use that for any of your portfolio pieces. So if nothing else, at least turn your phone sideways when you're shooting your footage. None of these black borders should be visible. And that goes for selecting still imagery as well. So if you take photos or if you use photos that are vertically aligned and you include those in a video, it's going to create these borders, and it just looks very unrefined. It looks like it is very very choppy, so avoid that as much as you can. Crop your images to fit the right aspect ratio if possible. So no vertical video. Next is sets and lighting. If you're shooting video, make sure that your setting is very well lit. And I believe you went over some fundamental lighting techniques in the digital video course. Usually you need the fill light, the 3-point lighting that gives you a nice rounded lighting effect on your subject. I know we don't have lighting packages sitting around our homes, but try to position lamps, try to position your subject in relation to the lighting in the room so that they're clearly visible. So this is an image I actually photoshopped to be darker because he actually had pretty good lighting. Could use a little bit more fill light in this case, but this is really good. You can see him well, you can see the setting very well, and setting is another issue. If you're shooting in your home, make sure that you have a nice uncluttered background. This is really successful. It's not very busy. There's a blank wall, but there's enough of reasonably attractive decor to make it a little visually interesting, and it's not uncluttered. It looks like he planned this out. He picked the right spot in his home to shoot this scene, and that's what I want to see. Even if you have to move some things around a bit, put some nice house plants in the picture or what have you, just to make it look somewhat attractive. That's if you're shooting this kind of talking head video in a location of this sort. If you're shooting out on location, then it's another story altogether. Pick your locations again very, very carefully. Look for appropriate settings and settings that are not going to undermine the effectiveness of your video. Also, if you're shooting outdoors, wind is going to be an issue with the audio because it's going to pick up and possibly drown out your audio. Be prepared to reshoot. So if you're shooting video and you're interviewing a particular person or have a particular talent involved, an actor or actress, be prepared to reshoot that footage. So have somebody involved who is readily available. If it's somebody that lives in a different city that you just happened to have available at that time, but then they're going away, that could be problematic if some of the edits called for involve reshoots. Same goes for equipment. Materials, like if you are doing a cooking video and reshooting it will involve more ingredients, then that's something that you need to be prepared for because it could happen, and it does happen. Okay, so setting, lighting, equipment, reshooting, be prepared for any eventuality. A lot of videos I see involve interviews, and you can do effective interviews with a single camera if you shoot your interviewer first and then your interviewee second, and sometimes that involves repeating the questions, repeating the answers. Maybe it's probably best to record all of the answers first to make that seem natural, and then have your interviewer restate the questions, and then just edit it together to look like it's a back and forth. And what you can do is make that look like it's a two-camera interview. So it looks like you're cutting between camera 1 and camera 2, and actually it's shot out of sequence and then edited. This is not uncommon in television production. When you frame an interviewer, a speaker, if they're looking to one side, frame them so that their head is aligned towards the opposite side, so that they're speaking into a space. If they're aligned so that their face is right up against the edge of the screen, then it gives the psychological impression that they're talking to a wall. It doesn't give us the natural sense that there's space there that they are talking into. So go for, allow them that amount of space. This is a little bit of a better diagram. So the long side of the open space should be in the direction that they're looking. The short side should be the back of their head. And that will give a very natural sense of them speaking into a defined space instead of talking into a blank wall. Okay, so those are just some quick tips and just some of the common problems that I see with some of these videos. Again, be prepared to reshoot your video if there are any issues, and it doesn't hurt to go ahead and shoot a lot of extra footage as well, just up front. If you do have any questions, any concerns, please let me know. We do have the holiday break this week, so it's a short week. All of the deadlines have been pushed back till after Monday, or until Monday of next week, so that you are not required to work over the holiday. You are welcome to get a head start if you feel the need. But otherwise, I hope you really enjoy the holiday break and have a really good Thanksgiving. And I'm looking forward to working with you this month.